During the Clone Wars, one savage brute clone trooper killed his Mandalorian trainer on Kamino, leading him to be locked up in a cage for the rest of the Clone Wars. This insane clone trooper carved his name deep into his skin and bulked up to a size 3 times larger than any clone trooper ever had. But were the Kaminoans telling the truth about this brutal beast, or was there a soft, good man hidden behind the tales of his violent actions? I'm going to break down the story of CT-5539 Kadak, the most insane and savage clone trooper to ever exist, or at least according to the Kaminoans. Before we get into it, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more awesome Star Wars lore content. So, the story begins with the celebration for the victory of the Empire and the destruction of the treasonous Jedi Order. The people were happy and cheering because the Clone Wars had finally come to an end after so much pain and suffering. One face in the crowd, however, is a familiar one. A clone trooper is enjoying the celebrations and listening intensely to the announcement that there will be a future without conflict or fear, where peace and security are offered to every citizen of the Empire. This clone trooper, however, still hopes that there are more fights to be had and more combat to take part in. The main reason that the Empire was showering this town in glory and partying in the streets was not only because the Clone Wars had been ended, but also because the citizens captured and turned over a Jedi traitor, savagely locking him up in a cage on display for all to see. This clone trooper did not know him, but he felt like he did, because in his eyes, all Jedi are the same. He looks directly into the eyes of the Saurian Jedi Master and thinks to himself, it's amazing how quickly things can change, before he is violently snapped into a flashback from not too long ago. The trooper has been downed in the desert, left for dead by his Jedi General and even his brothers. After 8 days of lying in the scorching desert heat, this clone trooper no longer wondered if he was going to die, but rather when. While waiting for his vision to fade to black and to never wake up again, he was attacked by countless vicious creatures, but managed to channel his anger for the Jedi to defend himself and crush the foul beasts with a rock. The creatures left a massive bleeding scar over his right eye, but he continued fighting on. After brutally crushing the skulls of the attacking creatures in, he then entered a horrible fever dream and wrote a word onto the walls, Hock. This word would then become his name, despite having absolutely no idea what it meant. After choosing a name for himself, Hock decided that his future wasn't going to be set in stone like his brothers. His destiny wasn't coded into his cells on Kamino like the rest. Hock was in control of his own destiny, and there were still many more chapters in his life story. Following this, Hock has another vision, a vision of the only other clone trooper to ever give himself a name. Hock and his friends at the Kamino Training Center jokingly referred to this other clone trooper as the Mandalorian Anomaly, but nobody joked about his savage abilities. This trooper excelled at absolutely everything his instructors threw at him. He was trained for commando operations by one of the best Mandalorian instructors to ever serve at the Kamino Training Center. But the rumor had it, however, that he and his instructor were not on the best of terms, and eventually their anger towards each other reached a boiling point, where this savage clone trooper killed the instructor with nothing but his bare hands. Following this, the barbaric clone trooper was locked away and deemed a mutant clone trooper, a horrible mistake in the Kaminoan cloning process. The Kaminoan scientists had performed countless tests on him to see how the cloning process could go so horribly wrong and produce such a freakish beast of a human. Sometime after the incident, Hock was placed on the duty that no other clone trooper wanted to do. He was told to bring meals to the savage beast, and all the crazy clones said to Hock when he delivered the meals was, "Thank you, slave." This freak clone named himself Kadak. An urban legend spread among the other clone troopers of the time, which said that he took the first name of the Mandalorian destroyer god, Kadhar Rangier, and used it forwards and backwards. Kadak talked of destroying the entire galaxy and building it up again. He even bulked himself up to a humongous size for a clone trooper and inscribed his name, Kadak, all over his body so that nobody would forget that he is a destroyer god. Kadak didn't like sharing a face with the rest of the clone troopers, so he took matters into his own hands, modifying his face with scratches, scars, bruises and cuts. Rumors spread across Kamino that Kadak was terminated the moment the scientists had completed their testing process on him, but there were also whispers that the Mandalorian Anomaly had escaped. While recounting this story, Hock says to himself, escape or die in captivity. I figured those were my two options as well, which meant that the only decision left in his mind was to decide which way to start walking to desert the clone army forever. Eventually, Hock even took a last name, something that not many of his other brothers had ever done. Hock took the last name Malsum. He chose this name because although he was created and raised on Kamino, he was truly born as his own man in the scorching deserts of the Malsum Expanse. The horrid conditions of the Malsum Expanse provided for Hawk like the Kaminoans never did. It disciplined him more than the Kaminoan training ever had, and most importantly to him, it served as the mother and father that he never had. The scorching Expanse taught Hawk lessons about himself that he would carry into every system. He even marked his helmet in the Imperial Army with a scar, matching the one on his face. Following this, he was deployed under Darth Vader himself, who took notice of the clone troopers' unusual traditions and methods. Hawk had never seen anything like Vader. Lord Vader was more than a warrior. His mere presence was enough to demoralize the enemy. The Jedi, who Hawk now hated so much, could never command this level of respect. In his eyes, the Jedi only cared about their order and nothing else. Eventually, Hawk moved from planet to planet, following the command of the Dark Lord of the Sith, enslaving local citizens and imprisoning them just for existing. Hawk's hard work eventually led to Lord Vader promoting him to the rank of Commander and gaining Vader's trust. Following this, Vader led a squadron of his finest pilots into battle over the hot, rebellious world of Ostor, where they surprisingly came up against huge resistance. Hawk was in absolute amazement at Lord Vader's piloting skills, even saying Lord Vader was by far the best pilot I had ever seen, or ever will see for that matter. But before he could let his amazement run wild, the V-19 fighters that were giving them so much trouble in the air seemingly vanished. The reason for this bizarre event hit both Vader and Hawk at the same time. In a very rare mistake, Vader had left his Star Cruiser without an air defense, leaving it wide open to attack. Vader rushed back to his cruiser in an attempt to save it, but Hawk had his own problems. One fighter tailed him with extreme accuracy. It was the second best fighter pilot he had ever seen. Moments later, Hawk was brutally shot out of the sky by the man he had delivered food to all of those years prior, Kadak. In Hawk's mind, as he was being shot down, Kadak angrily exclaimed, "Time to die, slave," before tearing Hawk's fighter to shreds in midair, causing him to impact the surface and turn his vision black. A long while after the crash, Hawk was jolted back into reality, but this time he found himself in a hospital in an unknown location. Eventually, Hawk stumbles into a command room where he comes across the three main rebel leaders on the planet, who very quickly inform him that Kadak is actually helping the rebellion and has even inspired the citizens to fight back against the evil Empire. Hawk refuses to believe this. He refuses to believe that Kadak isn't the horrible beast that the Kaminoans told everyone he was. He refuses to believe that Kadak could actually be a good man. Still in denial, Hawk begins a spree of destruction around the command center, attempting to remove the hope of the Ostor citizens. Once he exits the building, however, he saw something that chilled him to the core. The name Kadak was being shouted in the streets by the people of Ostor, who believed he was a hero to their world. Eventually, Vader moves his ground forces to the main city of Ostor, and Kadak's rebel forces do the same, bringing the two brothers face to face once more. When Hawk laid eyes on Kadak for the first time in years, he realized that he wasn't the savage beast that he once remembered. He was a normal looking clone who was simply fighting for hope in the galaxy. Hawk again refused to believe that he was lying to himself for all of these years and lashed out at Kadak, punching the innocent man directly in the face, spilling blood. Kadak held his men back, and Vader held his stormtroopers back, allowing the two clone troopers to enter a horrific fistfight with jabs, hooks, and strikes flying brutally in every direction. Eventually, Kadak manages to pull a blaster on Hawk and is moments away from ending his life, but before he can pull the trigger, Hawk uses the skills he honed in the desert, wrapping up a rock and crushing Kadak's skull, killing him instantly. As a result of this, Kadak's rebels crumbled and Vader's forces were able to storm into the main city, slaughtering every living being they saw. At this point, Hawk hated himself and no longer looked up to Vader. Hawk wondered if there was even a single ounce of humanity left inside of Vader's dark mechanical suit, because the things he saw Vader do that day left him haunted and traumatized forever. Vader killed younglings, blasted innocent people through the face, and much, much worse. This finally snapped Hawk. And to end the story, Hawk leaves the Empire and Vader to live life as a farmer in an unknown hidden location, where he was soon after married to a loving wife. He enjoyed a peaceful life, but was living in constant fear of Vader's shadow hunting him down at all times. So that is the story of the most brutal and vicious clone trooper to ever exist. Or at least, that's the lie the Kaminoans told the galaxy. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one.